I will call this Tigard City Council meeting to order. City Recorder Krieger, please call roll.
Council President Hu,
Here.
Mayor Lube,
Here.
Youth Councilor Vogel,
Present.
Councilor Shaw,
Here.
Councilor Singh,
Here.
and Councilor Wolf is excused tonight.
Thank you. If everyone will join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, everyone. City Council or staff, do we have any non-agenda items this evening?
None for us, Mayor.
Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to public comment. If you'd like to call for phone-in public comment, please do so now to get in the queue. The phone number is 503-966-4101. If you are wishing to speak about the solid waste fees, you should wait until agenda item number 5. Anyone wishing to comment in public, in person, there is a sign-up sheet at the back of the room. If you haven't already signed up, I do have one person. We will start with a follow-up to previous public comment with Assistant City Manager Nyland. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and councilors. At last week's council meeting, we did receive 5 written comments, and we had 2 people provide testimony in person. The written comments covered a range of issues from banning fireworks to questions about our Residential Aid Fund of Tigard, also known as RAFT, that grant process, to changes to our MAID proposal regarding zoning changes. We also had a comment about public input, and lastly, a comment about the safety on Wall Street. The 2 individuals who weighed in about public input and Wall Street also provided comments in person. So we did follow up with each individual, whether that was an acknowledgement that their comment was received or a reminder that an issue like fireworks was scheduled for an upcoming meeting, like tonight. And in some case, the counselor may have provided additional information in their response. As I hope you see, we are making a concerted effort to identify issues that people are particularly interested in and reaching back out to them to let them know that such a topic is being scheduled at an upcoming meeting so they can add their voice and stay informed. Thanks for your time and for listening, and that's my update for this evening.
Thank you. We will move on to written public comment. We did receive 3 comments yesterday by noon. The first is from Debbie Rubottom, and to summarize, fireworks are starting earlier than July 4th and lasting over 10 days, asking that for the safety and well-being of all Tigard residents, all personal fireworks be banned and this be legally enforced and something stronger than a warning. Michael Bruin wrote us to speak about promoting universality, equality, and fairness in public policies, saying that Tigard adults 55 plus need equitable representation on boards and commissions. Patty Lambottom also wrote us regarding fireworks, saying that illegal fireworks are starting earlier than July 4th and ending after. M880 type illegal fireworks are rattling the windows. There are veterans, animals, and older people that need help with this, and they want a reasonable approach to fireworks that's fair and equitable to all neighbors. We will move on to public comment in person, and I have one person who signed up to speak. Meekly Blizzard, would you like to come on up? There is a button on the front of the microphone to turn it on, and you have 2 minutes. Welcome.
There, it's green. It must be on. There we go.
Green is
Thank
good.
you. Yeah. Dear Mayor Lube and City Councilors Hu, Shaw, Singh, Wolf, and Vogel, I appreciate this opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Meeky Blizzard. I've lived in unincorporated Washington County since 1978. I became a community activist in the 1990s to oppose the proposed Western Bypass Freeway and to promote the Lutrac alternative, which focused on creating communities designed for people, not cars. And this alternative was eventually adopted by Metro, as you may know, and served as a national model for accommodating population growth without building new freeways across rural areas. And although the recent development in Beaverton's South Cooper Mountain has drastically changed the once rural landscape that I've known for many, many years, I understand our need for additional housing, especially affordable housing. I cannot in good conscience object to growth in my own neighborhood just because I've had the good fortune to already live there. However, I continue to be concerned about the impacts of continued sprawl that is designed to ensure that everyone drives everywhere, which is why I'm here tonight, and that is to support Tigard's concept plan for River Terrace 2.0. This concept plan seeks to create a livable, equitable community that doesn't rely on bigger roads. And I'm especially appreciative of the plan's preference for the extension of Mountainside Way, even though Washington County's proposal to extend an expanded tile flat road through River Terrace 2.0. As you know, a more sustainable future relies on our ability to create livable communities and then develop a transportation system that meets the needs of those communities, rather than build a transportation system and then hope that our communities survive all the additional traffic. In addition, bigger roads mean higher costs, which eventually mean higher housing costs, which works against our goals of a more equitable, creating more equitable communities. So I urge you to join me and many of my neighbors who oppose Washington County's Ordinance 882, which would expand and extend Tile Flat Road through River Terrace 2.0 for the following reasons. It would undermine Tigard's efforts to make River Terrace 2.0 a safer, more sustainable, and more equitable community. The county's 2020 Urban Roads Transportation Study concluded that this expanded road would attract additional and regional travel through that community, negating a lot of the effects of a walkable community. It also would curtail residents' ability to travel safely on foot or by bike and severely damage the natural resources by crossing sensitive natural areas. It would also undermine local and regional goals to reduce climate change by adding lane miles and therefore the resulting VMT. So again, I applaud your efforts in creating River Terrace 2.0 concept plan, and I know that you're accepting a grant from Metro this evening to make that happen. I look forward to its implementation. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. The next item on our agenda is public comment by phone or video. Mr. Wold, are there any phone callers in the queue or any requests to comment by video?
Yes, we have 2 callers in the queue, Mayor. I will connect the first one right now.
Okay. Hello, welcome to the Tigard City Council meeting. If you are on, you have 2 minutes, and please introduce us, let us know your name.
My name is Jason Trout. I'm with TNT Fireworks. I'm the regional manager for Oregon, and I came before you guys a couple weeks ago when you first spoke about fireworks, and I continue to implore you to reach out to me to help you guys hopefully solve your fireworks problem. I represent 5 nonprofit organizations that their funds were severely cut short this year because of the act that the city took on the 4th of July, and I would like to offer up several other options that might not damage the ability of our nonprofit organizations to make money selling fireworks. So again, my name is Jason Trout. I'm the regional manager at TNT Fireworks, and I am willing and hopeful to work with the city to come up with some sort of resolution to help with the fireworks problem. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Wold, can we have the second caller in the queue, please?
Yes, here is the second caller.
Welcome. We have you at the Tigard City Council public comment. Please introduce your name, and then you have 2 minutes to speak.
Good evening. My name is Karina Rendy. I'm speaking here tonight to oppose spending on police vehicles. I'm a longtime city resident, having lived here for more than 15 years in my current home, as well as serving almost a decade on city council advisory boards before starting volunteer service with Unite Oregon on their Washington County Leadership Council. I share this information with you just to assure you that I'm a community-minded city resident, that I'm aware of the diverse needs here in Tigard, as well as some of the challenges council must face when balancing those needs. Over the past few years, it's become increasingly clear that many social inequities, often with historic causes, impact many Tigard residents. We have families struggling to pay bills and remain sheltered. Too many struggle to access the services they need from the city, along with mental and physical health support, students who need additional support services, and library users who just want to celebrate with pride everyone in their community. I think what we've learned from the struggles we faced since 2020 is that it is imperative that we as a community, and you as our community's collective conscience and elected decision makers, consider how those with the least resources are impacted by the decisions that you make. I'm very concerned with the proposal to expend close to $500,000 on additional police vehicles. I'm concerned about the short lifespan proposed for police vehicles. Why are we surrendering vehicles after only 4 years? Is it truly an efficient use of taxpayer money? And is this a sustainable approach to our resources? Who is helped by the rapid turnover of police vehicles in our community? It's not the young people who would like to be able to afford to stay in the community they grew up in, and it's not the families who are struggling to remain. It doesn't benefit those who will suffer the most severe impacts of the climate crisis. Are our current youth who will have to bear the future burdens of today's excessive resource consumption? How else could we be spending this money? Who could we be investing in? We know there are community members who struggle to access city resources. We could be investing in ensuring equitable access to these services, as well as establishing more sustainable and efficient policies for the city's fleet as a whole, possibly through the completion of the Community Resilience Plan, in a manner that aligns with your council's commitments to embrace sustainability and be responsible stewards of this community's natural and financial resources. Therefore, I urge you to reconsider how and who you invest our community's resources in this evening. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is our administrative report, and we will turn it over to City Manager Reimer.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, members of the community, my teammates that are here. Just a couple quick updates before I introduce Kenny Asher, our Community Development Director, and team to come up to provide a Universal Plaza update. First is we're a week away from National Night Out, an exciting time here in Tigard as well as across the country. Just talked to Maddie, and I believe we have 20 parties scheduled. And I know many, if not all of you, will be traveling to many of those with some of our officers and others to just enjoy a safe evening of bringing our community together and supporting one another as we do here in Tigard. I believe there's also time for individuals or neighborhoods to register, so they can reach out to our police department if they would like to register their party as well, so we're aware of it, and then we can make sure to attend it. On that same spirit of community safety, welcomeness, being that community that we want to be, I want to thank and commend the Tigard Public Library Board. At their meeting last Wednesday, I believe, on the 19th, they adopted a statement of support for our community, for our teammates, as we continue to strive to be a safe and welcoming community. And I thought I could just, it's relatively short, if I could just read it for you as well as the community. The Tigard Public Library Board is proud to reiterate our support for the inclusive and equitable programming offered by the Tigard Public Library. We continue to believe that the Tigard Public Library should be an inclusive and welcoming space for all community members, and we are proud to protect and support the library's continuing work toward being a community hub for knowledge and enrichment where everyone feels welcome. So once again, I want to say thank you to them as we all are continuing to find ways to make sure that not only our community members, but also our teammates here feel safe in this community, feel welcome in this community, and know they're appreciated in this community. I know I saw our library director walk in as well. I just want to say thank you to her for her leadership with her team as well as with our organization and community and making sure that we are the community that we strive to be. So with that, I will turn it over to Kenny Asher. Kenny?
Thanks, Steve. Hello again. Nice to see you. I'm Kenny Asher, Community Development Director. You have a lot of community development on your agenda tonight. That makes me happy. I understand that the council would like an update on all things Universal Plaza. I understand why that, and have asked a few of my teammates to be on hand as well to help me fill you in. So I will just quickly introduce Vanessa Robinson from Shields Oblitz Johnson, who you met last time, our owner's representative. Jim Garland, who I'm not sure you've met yet. He's the designer of the water feature. He's the principal and founder of Fluidity Design. I believe we might have Brian Shoemaker, also a principal of PNC Construction, is joining us. They're our general contractor, and I think Ken Feringer from PNC Construction is also part of our group tonight. He's our project manager, and I know Brian Rager, your public works director, is standing by, as is our members of his team, Rick Ruin. So here's where I need to begin. You know that feeling when you order something and you are so excited to receive it, and it comes on the truck and you open it and it doesn't work, and it's so frustrating. There's some of that going on here, and that's not a perfect analogy, because the centerpiece of our plaza, which is the splash pad, isn't something that we've bought yet. We don't own it. We've not accepted it. We are still trying to get it to run right. And nonetheless, it is frustrating. It's frustrating for everybody. It is frustrating for you, I know. It's frustrating for the community, first and foremost. It's frustrating for your staff. It's frustrating for the contracting team. So this is really one, we're all feeling the same thing. We're all, I think, sharing in the same frustration. And I will tell you what I told you a month ago, we are all working together to fix this, and working together pretty well, as evidenced by the number of people who wanted to be here tonight to help explain and answer questions. And we are all striving towards one outcome, which is to get the whole plaza available to the whole community as soon as possible. And I mention that it's just important as an introductory remark. You know, sometimes on construction projects, there are disagreements about whether something works, about whether something's done, about whether something's right. We don't have that going on here. This team is still all working together to get this finished. So one outcome. And speaking of working together and working hard, I just want to take a moment to thank the Parks Division in Public Works, Martin McKnight, Greg Stout in particular. They have spent a lot of time in the vault trying to get the water feature to work properly. It's taken them away from other responsibilities. That is a drag. That whole Parks group, including Rick, have been putting their everything towards this problem, as has my team. But anyway, I want to thank them and make sure that they're recognized. With that, I know sharing information helps, so I'm happy to be here to do this and to introduce Vanessa Robinson. I asked Vanessa to kind of walk you through what's happened since my last update, which was a month ago, and I think on that night I said this will be done on Saturday. That didn't happen. I was surprised by that. Again, apologize for that. I want you to know what has happened and what's being done to get us to the goal line, and then maybe hear from Jim and Brian quickly as well, if that's okay. Vanessa?
All right. Good evening, everybody. Again, Vanessa Robinson with SOJ. I'm going to provide you with an update on the open and outstanding items at Universal Plaza. Starting with the general items, which is the punch list items. We have a limited number of items that remain on the list. A number of them are within the restroom building and looking to complete those within 4 weeks. Then we have some items related to the pervious asphalt that we know are connected to a bigger picture. We have 3 items that we have deemed not substantially complete yet, that include the water feature, the pervious asphalt, and the decomposed granite. Water feature I will discuss here in a moment. The pervious asphalt, the final remedy for this will not be completed until fall, as we discussed previously, due to its materiality. And the decomposed granite is just awaiting the architect's acceptance, and then that will be complete. We are tracking 3 warranty items at this time. that include the community table planks, the boardwalk planks, and some limited concrete cracking at the water feature. The table plank solution is being worked on now. I do not have a definitive completion date quite yet. The boardwalk planks, we are awaiting materials to arrive, and replacement should be complete within 4 weeks. The concrete at the water feature splash pad, further discussions are required with Jim, who is there on site, to discuss the need for this. We have 2 owner requested changes that include the swings, work at the swings, and the toilet seats. As far as the swings go, Rios, the architect, has provided 2 options to limit the bench swing. There is one for stabilizing the bench at below the bench, and then there is another solution for a connection at the arms. We are awaiting excuse me, a solution to limit the opportunity for climbing. I need to note the cost of this is not known at this time, and it is expected that the final solution will take several months for the design, the procurement, and the fabrication process. And toilet seats, there has been a request to add toilet seats to the existing toilets on site. The team is meeting tomorrow to discuss this viability. And to the splash pad. So I'm going to walk you through what has transpired since the last council update, which was on June 27th. So the week of July 3rd, on Monday morning, Parks discovered that there was a leak and possible faulty chlorinator as the water chemistry within the system was not stabilizing. So PNC immediately got involved, engaged some local plumbers and electricians to work through the issues that we knew. On Thursday, July 6th of that week, the entire team got together to discuss what was worked on that week, and it was determined that OTL needed to return to site the following week. So now the week of July 10th. Daily updates were now being provided to the city and to the team with the goal of opening that Friday, July 14th. OTL arrived on site on Tuesday, the 11th. There was a full evaluation done by OTL and their team of the system within the first day and a half working with the Parks team. They determined that there was a lack of pressure and water flow that was feeding the chlorinator. The work on this for the water flow and pressurization issues was then completed on July 13th. At this time, the team understood that the system was fully functioning and the water chemistry balanced. PNC sent an email late that night on the 13th with a description of the work that was completed and the current status. At this moment in time, we understood that all systems were go on Thursday the 13th. Takes us to the week of July 17th. Parks was monitoring the feature within their testing and balancing phase throughout the weekend. The system was holding its chlorination regulation during the day, but would then falter at night. So the team met on Tuesday, July 18th, with the entire design team. We've got Fluidity, PNC, OTL, total contracting team to discuss the issue. And there was the possible solution discussed that it may be as simple as the programming of the controller that may be in conflict with the timer. So OTL and Parks, again, communicating all the time, working on this for the next couple of days. The team had gotten together on the 18th and said that if this issue with the programming is not the solution, then the only next step is all hands on deck on site immediately by the team. Friday of that week, on the 21st, Parks determined that the programming solution did not fix that chlorination and the valve during the off hours. It worked well during the day, and even when the feature was off during the day, but not during the off hours at night. So at this time, it was determined that the system, though functional in a manual mode, was not functioning in an automatic mode. And Friday, July 21st, the team determined that an expanded commissioning team is required back on site to solve the issues. Bringing us to this week. OTL, 2 engineers arrived today on site, and Fluidity, Jim here, got together this afternoon. Excuse me. The expectations, once everything is complete, is that the team will remain on site until for the future to be functioning consistently for 3 full days. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jim, since he was there latest, and to give us a current status of where things are landing right now.
Thank you, Vanessa. Hello, everybody. Of course, we apologize that this has taken this long, and we are committed, as is OTL and everybody else on the team. Today, yes, I met with Jerry West and Tom Reel of OTL. They are very senior people with that company, and they are going to stay there until this is sorted out. The chemical dosing is really the problem we're focusing on. It's not automatic yet. There does still seem to be a programming issue. Right now, the PLC, the Programmable Logic Controller, is when the fountain does not have the correct chemistry, it's automatically shutting itself off, and it's shutting off also its chemical dosing system. So we have to sort that out, reprogram the controller. The doser itself seems to be functioning well with the new piping arrangement, but there is occasionally some air in the line which should not be there, and it will impede the functionality of the device. And so that element needs to get figured out. Right now there's not air in the line, but it has been in there previously. We have to figure out how it gets in there and how it gets out, and fix that. Those 2 things, when they are rectified, should no longer impede the functionality of the fountain, and it should operate safely. The programming of the fountain is fine. The physical fountain itself, other than the cracks that Vanessa mentioned, is in good shape. So it's just these 2 small areas, the controller of the chemical dosing and the chemical dosing itself, that are the problem.
Thank you, Jim. I want to invite Brian Shoemaker, who's principal at PNC Construction. OTL, by the way, is the subcontractor who built the fountain and are here again. They've actually, this is their 3rd time coming back to the site to troubleshoot. Brian, PNC has been committed the whole way, and I really appreciate your being here tonight. Do you have anything that you would like to share with the council?
I'll just finish with, I'm very thankful that we have Jim with Fluidity here to help work directly with OTL and troubleshooting these issues. PNC is a local contractor, and we know that some of these subcontractors that we have working on this project are from out of town. They're coming in and staying here locally until they get the issues resolved. And I just want to confirm to the city of Tigard that you do have a local contact for a contractor here to help shepherd all of this through to completion. So appreciate everybody's participation in working towards a solution.
Thank you, Brian. We're happy to try to answer questions. I suspect you may have a few.
Councillor Shaw, do you have any questions?
I do, but not quite yet.
Okay.
I'm still formulating a couple of thoughts.
Council President Hu?
Sure, I go ahead. So going back to the controller issue, has this controller been used in any other project, or has it been problematic, or is just somehow the city of Tigard has been having really bad luck with this controller?
Okay, I'll take that one. The controller is not an innovative device. The design of the fountain is unique, special design for the let's say, harmony of its place. But the equipment and the engineering behind the fountain is all top grade, understood technologies. What happened here is a little embarrassing. When a fountain is commissioned, the contractor does some of the work and the designer does some of the work. And it was the contractor's belief that the PLC should be programmed by the designer, and it was the designer's belief that no, that technical thing should be programmed by the contractor. When they originally finished their work, they thought we had done it. So it took a little time to sort out. They did the work, and there is a flaw in not in the machine, but in how it was programmed. We think we know exactly where that flaw is now. And so there is a specialist who knows that language. He is out of town, but he can email the solution to us and we can implement it over the course of the next day or so.
Okay. So when you mention air in line, is that also something that you know what caused it and you can fix it in the next couple of days, or is it just try anything you can until there's no air in line?
We're not going to try anything we can. It is a mystery. It shouldn't be there. All the pipes and elements are under the water line of the storage tank. There should be no air anywhere. So it is a mystery. We have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning. We're going to bring in Fluidity's senior engineer, and we're going to talk this out, and we'll perform some tests to see where the air is coming from. It won't be hit or miss. We will find this, and we're not going to leave the job until this part of the process is also solved.
Okay, I have more questions, but I'd like. Oh, okay. So regarding the crack in the water feature, I saw several of them. So is it clear right now that we're not going to accept it until we see there's no crack in there, or are we going to accept them with cracks patch up? What's the acceptance criteria at this point?
Vanessa, I can speak to this. We haven't spoken about it lately much, but the cracks should not be there. The cracks are happening in spite of the fact that concrete should not have cracked. There was sufficient concrete thickness and rebar that it should not have cracked. That leads us to suspect that there was something wrong in the concrete mix. For instance, it might have had too much water in it or something like that to weaken the concrete. Going back and taking the concrete out and reapplying comes with some risks of doing some damage to the nozzles and things like that. I haven't been a party to talking to the subcontractor who did the concrete, but our idea when we first talked about the cracks, which was about a month ago, was to ask the subcontractor what they think caused it and what the best way to repair the cracks would be. I haven't heard their answer to that question.
So we don't know if we're going to accept them with cracks, even they're patch up, or are we going to only accept them when there's no crack, visible crack at least? Do we know?
I don't think, I'll speak for the city, because the city is going to make a determination about acceptance. I don't think we do know.
Okay.
I think that this is one of a couple items where the team needs to have more discussion, and we need to evaluate all the options. I mean, Jim, safe to say these cracks are a cosmetic problem, right? We would prefer for them not to be there. They're not compromising the integrity of the concrete or the structure or the fountain at all. I believe that's an accurate
Correct.
statement. So I don't like them, rather not see them, but if it means taking more risk to re-pour and get the mix right, the color right, and put it out of commission again, these are all things that we need to consider. But the acceptance of the water feature, like I said last time, is going to be made by my department, the Department of Public Works, and the City Manager's Office. And everybody's going to have to be comfortable that it works and it's going to work for a long time before we accept it. How the repair of the cracks factors into that, we're not quite there yet.
Okay. One last question regarding the water feature. Do we have any timeline of when we're going to be done, and so we can start a 3-day testing period?
I mean, my foot
Well,
is so deeply in my mouth already in trying to answer that question. Jim, did you want to say something to that?
Well, when I was with the OTL gentleman this afternoon, I specifically brought that question up, since it is predictable. Jerry West is going to be here for 2 weeks at least, but we all believe, they believe that they will get this solved over the course of the week. That 3-day run should happen within 5 or 7 days.
Okay.
And what's different this time is we're not letting anybody leave the site. I mean, I don't know how much control we have over subcontractors, plane tickets. I wish they hadn't left the prior 2 times they were here, but again, I'm not sure it was in our control to keep them here after they said their work was done. This time, the commitment is nobody's leaving till this is all resolved, and not just resolved at the moment they turn it on, but resolved over 72 hours. The other thing to share is that our Public Works team needs time after the 72 hours to train staff. And so, as I understand from Brian Rager, it's going to be a few more days after that, but I still hope and pray that we're within 10 days, 14 days of having this open to the public.
Yeah. Okay. I told city manager that if it's not fixed the next time we have city council meeting, I will be very interested in having everybody come back to report to us again. So good luck.
I'd rather not be here for that.
Youth Councilor Vogel?
I think my questions were answered. Thank you.
Yep. Councilor Singh, do you have any questions? Okay, back to you, Councilor Shaw.
Thank you, and I understand this has been rather difficult for everybody. And just, I think, Vanessa, you had mentioned, and I have 2 questions. One regarding the swings. That was going to take several months to repair. And one, is that accurate? And 2, have we then thought about what to transition those to? Because I haven't seen a lot of community comments. It's mainly been the splash pad, but that they're really missing the swing. So I'm wondering if we can't turn it into some sort of other project, sculpture, or something. So that's the first question I have. But several months seems rather unacceptable, particularly when it's cordoned off.
Yeah. So the reality of the time and the sequencing, in order to, one, we have to get a design. It has to be engineered, and then it has to go to the fabricator. And to this Landscape Forms is the name of the company that fabricated the swings. And so they need to then create drawings, which in turn needs to be then reviewed by the architects and accepted. And then it turns back to them, and then we can fabricate the steel. And so that's where the timeline comes in. I agree. It feels like it should be expedited much quicker. We are also being very careful in the fact with working with Landscape Forms, which has been great in order to validate the warranty. So we could do it rogue, but then the warranty on the swing system would no longer be valid.
One important clarification, and maybe everybody understands this, the swings are not malfunctioning. The swings, unlike the splash pad, are not closed because they weren't built or they weren't built right. It was a City of Tigard decision based on the way they were being used to shut them down for safety purposes. So unlike the splash pad, the swings have been accepted. They were built to specifications. They were operating the way they were designed to operate. And now we want to go and do something different with them that wasn't part of the design contract or the construction package. So that's why we're sort of starting from scratch on that modification.
I don't think it's worked. But I understand it was also a safety issue. It's some bolts falling,
Right.
and maybe that had been resolved, but,
I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
Yes, and thank you for raising that. It's very confusing. That did happen. It was resolved, and then the swings were shut down, but not because of any hardware malfunction or any hardware falling out. That was resolved, and this decision was independent of that, although it's very difficult to keep all these things straight. I understand that.
Can I just cut in real quick to ask a clarification on why the decision to close the swings, how they were being used improperly? Because we say that and we don't know. I think the community doesn't understand what that actually means.
Yeah, I think probably the best person to speak to that would be Rick Gruen. This was field observations, I would say. Folks, the Parks group that has been on the site the most was watching play activity in that area and made the recommendation to close them, which was ultimately accepted by city management.
Welcome, Rick.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Hi, everybody. Rick Gruen, Parks and Recreation Manager. So kind of the issue is the to and fro action of the swinging bench exceeded, along with the dimensions of the beams across, kind of puts us into a situation where are they considered play swings or more decorative furniture? When you put it in individually, some of the comments that Kenny mentioned about the bolts and, you know, the torque or the pressure on the limiter was stressing, but you have to look at the entirety of the structure and comments that were made during the design process where we had some concerns that if it operated the way it did and swung in that to and fro action the way it did, and the dimensions of the lumber, the width of the beams, kind of puts us into that area where from a safety and liability issue, are they considered a play swing? I understand the design intent is not as a play swing, but in the use of it, because of the to and fro action and the ability, we've seen kids climbing on top of the, you know, shimming up the pole onto the top of the beam together with the decomposed granite of the surfacing. It kind of takes us out of the plaza swinging bench into the play swing realm that you would typically expect in a park. So the pause in terms of closing it down was to get an understanding, is there a solution that could possibly limit the to and fro action? Doesn't have to necessarily be stationary, but limit that with also being concerned about the fall zone because of the surfacing and the to and fro action. We have some issues that have to be addressed. So, you know, it's really the functionality kind of in balance, not in balance with the safety standards that are required for a traditional playground swing. So that's kind of the nuance of why it's shut down as we, the team, considers these solutions. If it's intended to swing the way it is there solutions that we just call it a play swing, but we have to make some modifications with surfacing and the beam structure? If it's a porch swing design intent, we have to do some limiting to guard against it's all about user safety and liability. So hopefully, excuse me, this was helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Shaw.
Thank you. And I'm not sure if it would make sense, but maybe if it's going to take several months, just remove it and see if it works somewhere else that's not in public space. Maybe that's an option, and put a couple of planters there in the interim. But anyway, I'll leave that, Kenny, to you and your stellar team to decide. Last question I had, and I think Vanessa also, you mentioned toilet seats. I know this has been a topic for, it seems like quite some time. Again, I think if you're part of the general public, you wouldn't understand why it would be difficult. And I'm not sure if you had given a time on when we actually might see seats, but can you just explain just briefly why it is a problem and why it's taking so long to remedy? Thank you.
The seats that were specified and installed are not built to accept toilet seats being added to them. So they are a standalone modeled system. And so the meeting that we're having tomorrow is to discuss if it is viable in order to adjust, I would say, the existing seats that we have already installed. We also need to make sure that it does not create any opportunities for vandalism or safety and ripping them off. And so that's what we need to validate tomorrow in our meeting, which we have with the contractor and with Parks. I mean, we're including everybody in that discussion.
Great, thank you, Vanessa. And just last point, I know when we have air line at home, it means there's a hole in my sprinkler. And so I don't know if there's a hole. Jim had mentioned they can't figure it out. But anyway, I just mentioned that because I've had to recently fix my sprinkler, so I know about air in the line. But thank you so much.
If it works now, maybe kids could come and play in it.
Are there any additional questions that came up, Council President Hu?
I just want to voice my support of the idea of removing the swing somewhere else. That's not going to void the warranty, right? If we move it somewhere else while figuring out what's wrong with it. The reason I'm saying this is because I really dislike the current setup of a black screen around it. It just, in Chinese culture, that just looked like a funeral to me. And that's just really, really bad thing to see every day for the next several months. So if we can just remove the whole thing and do our experiment somewhere else and have something, I would rather have nothing there in the meantime than that ugly black tarp around it. So that's not gonna, is that gonna void the warranty, or if we move it somewhere else? Or
I can't answer you 100%. I don't see why it would, but we will follow up with the team on that option this week.
Yeah, so I really support Councilor Shaw's suggestion of moving it somewhere else so we don't see that tarp. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. I also want to take into consideration, I haven't seen the tarps, but that does not sound great. Since we've accepted it, any modifications or changes that we make, the city is going to be paying for. And so if it's simply not liking the screens, then I would hope that there's a different solution that we can come up with versus completely removing the swings just to have them reinstalled at the city's expense. And so I also don't want us to get too much into the weeds, again, separating us being policymakers versus the actual operations. And so I think vocalizing that is really helpful, that maybe visually this is not the way to go, but I don't know that removing the entire swings is the solution to that. So, but I think they hear us loud and clear that the current solution perhaps maybe isn't working. Mr. Asher, anything additional? Okay, thank you for being here, and thank you to everyone for being here to give us an update. We look forward to the day that we don't have to see you.
We'll see you out there.
Yep.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. We do have a Tigard City Council and Local Contract Review Board consent agenda, which is used for routine items including minutes and approval of contracts or intergovernmental agreements. Information on each item is available on the city's website in the packet for the meeting. Items may be enacted in one motion without separate discussion. Council members may request that an item be removed by motion for discussion and separate action. On the consent agenda tonight is a resolution of support for a housing planning assistance grant from the Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development, a Metro 2040 grant to fund Tigard Home Project outreach, project director contract for City of Tigard ERP implementation, and fleet police vehicle purchases. Are there any comments or a motion?
If no comments, Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second the motion.
The motion has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
The motion is adopted by a vote of 3-1 for the council. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing, the adoption of solid waste fees. I will open the public hearing, and anyone wishing to testify by phone, please call now to get in the queue. It's 503-966-4101, and welcome Interim Finance Director Kang.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. It's a pleasure to see you again. For the record, my name is Eric Kang, Interim Finance Director, and today I'm here to follow up on the solid waste rate discussion from the June 27th meeting. So staff has made a revision to the recommendation from the agenda packet and is recommending that Council consider adopting a rate increase of 8% across all solid waste rates as of January 1st, 2024. Consistent with the guidance from the June 27th meeting. Per the Tigard Municipal Code 1104090, when the composite rate of return for the franchise solid waste haulers are between 8 to 12%, we would follow a formula using CPI to recommend a rate increase for the following calendar year. The composite rate of return for the franchise solid waste haulers was 10.6% for the 2022 calendar year, and with CPI US at 8%, staff is recommending Council consider an 8% increase in accordance with the Tigard Municipal Code. Staff revised the recommendation due to option number 2 in the agenda packet not meeting the revenue requirements to meet the 8 to 12% composite rate of return with the January 1st implementation date. Additionally, Council had asked for a follow-up from staff regarding the cost of food waste and yard debris carts and the history of implementation dates for rate increases in the last 8 years. And just to follow up on those items, in aggregate, the cost to the franchise solid waste haulers for food waste service and yard debris is approximately $12,000 per month, and from a costing perspective, this would amount to 90 cents per month for customers that use the yard debris service. And in regards to implementation dates, in the last 8 years, rates have been implemented on January 1st with the exception of 2015, 2019, and 2023 when Recycle Plus was added. I'm happy to answer any questions, and additionally, representatives from our franchise solid waste haulers are also present and available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We did not receive any written comments by noon on Monday. Network Administrator Wold, are there any callers in the queue to testify?
Mayor, there are no callers in the queue.
Thank you. City Recorder Krager, has anyone signed up in person to speak?
No, they have not.
Okay. There is no testimony to respond to, and so I will close the public hearing. And now we will move on to council consideration of resolution 23-23. I will open it up for comments, questions, or motions. Councilor Shaw?
Just one quick question, and thank you so much, Interim Finance Director Kang. Appreciate it. There was not a rate increase last year? Is that correct?
That is correct. There was no rate increase outside of the addition of the food waste service and the Recycle Plus.
The percentage had been over 12%, and I robustly remember the conversation where we decided to keep the fees as is to move into the next year. So no, the City of Tigard has not increased it, I guess, in 2 years at this point. No additional questions? Does anyone disagree with the staff recommendation of option 1?
All right. So I will move to approve resolution number 23-23 with Exhibit A, with option 1.
I'll second the motion.
The There has been a motion for the resolution and seconded. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, City Recorder, please read the number and title of the resolution.
Resolution number 23-23, a resolution amending the citywide fees and charges schedule, which was adopted under resolution number 23-13 and subsequent amendments, with Exhibit A and using option 1.
Youth Councilor Vogel, will you provide us an advisory vote?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All of those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the resolution 23-23 is adopted by unanimous vote of the council who are present. All right, the next item on our agenda is the Opportunity Cafe Business Incubator Enterprise Recruitment. And for that, we have Economic Development Manager Purdy here. Welcome.
Good evening, Council. I'm Lloyd Purdy, the city's Economic Development Manager, and I'm here with colleagues from MISO Micro Enterprise Services of Oregon. Thank you. Thank you, Shika. I'm here with Shika Goal and Joshua Jacobs from MISO, and we will provide to you tonight a briefing at an exciting point in the life of a project. There's no action that you need to take, but we're happy to entertain questions when we're done. I am going to introduce you in a minute formally to Joshua and Shika, and they are going to talk to you a little bit about MISO, Micro Enterprise Services of Oregon, just a quick overview. I'll give you some background on the Opportunity Cafe Business Incubator. We'll talk about some of the successes we've had there. I'll give you a status update on the recruitment process, because that is the exciting point we're at right now. And then we'll talk about the next steps and open up any questions you may have. So with that said, let me first see if Joshua or Shika would like to tell you a little bit about MISO, Micro Enterprise Services of Oregon. Yeah. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Joshua, Business Development Manager with MISO. I oversee our satellite offices, including Washington County. So we are an organization, nonprofit, that serves small businesses, particularly low-income and BIPOC-owned businesses. And in that, we provide a variety of services and resources to those small businesses. And that includes technical assistance, which is one-on-one advising, where we help businesses write business plans, marketing plans, help them with their finances, all the way up to, opening up a storefront. We also have workshops where business owners can learn more about particular subjects that they are interested in or that they think will help them grow in their ownership of their business. We're also a micro lender. We offer loans starting at $100 that go all the way up to $500,000, depending on what the client needs. And we also have a business IDA program, which is a match savings account, where every dollar the client puts in, we match it with $5. So those are just some of the ways that we serve small businesses in the community. And Shika works particularly with Israel, who runs the current business and Opportunity Cafe.
Thank you, Joshua. Perfect. We're going to get to hear a little bit from Shika in a moment, but let me give you a reminder about the Opportunity Cafe. It's a business incubator with an equity focus. It's an economic mobility program in partnership with not just MISO, but also the Tigard Public Library. It provides new entrepreneurs a critical ingredient, space, access to customers, reduced rent, and more importantly, business coaching that Shika provides to help an entrepreneur start their business and grow. It uses the 400 square feet micro cafe space at the lobby of the Tigard Public Library, and gives library patrons one of their most requested extra amenities. Besides great media, it also gives them access to coffee and snacks. We, the city of Tigard, leased the space to MISO. In the first round that we did this, MISO selected the tenant from their network of socially and economically challenged entrepreneurs. And then the idea is that every 2 years, the space rotates and a new entrepreneur has a chance to start their business at this location. and that's the point we're at right now. The first entrepreneur in residence at the Opportunity Cafe, Israel Martinez, opened El Quadrilatero in September of 2021. He is, of course, the subtenant of MISO. I receive a profit and loss statement every quarter from Shika and saw very quickly that Israel was in the black, making a profit and receiving the one-to-one coaching that Shika provides. He's also taken advantage of some other MISO resources, some of the things that Joshua mentioned. So I count this program as a success for us, a success for MISO, and a success for Israel. And with that, I want Shika to have a moment to share some of the successes that she's experienced working one-on-one with MISO as his coach.
Thank you, Lloyd. As you know, my name is Shika Goel, and I'm a business development specialist at MISO. So I would like to take a journey back and tell you how Israel contacted MISO with the dream of having his own business in 2020. And not much said, that year flies by, and he's in 2021 registering his business, and the great opportunity comes from the city of Tigard, where he launched his business in the incubator space in the library. And in September 2021, he was there. The hands-on keep on going with coaching, assisting, whatever he needs. And speaking about his successes, you know, coming from a background where he did not have any that knowledge other than washing the dishes, which he has done in the restaurant. He learned the public speaking, you know, thanks to the city of Tigard by interviewing him and giving him that opportunity. He learns how to do cash flow projections, and today he learned how to do his balance sheet. So learning all, going on through that process. And now if I speak on to his next step, he is ready to come out of that space into a food cart. So his food cart is under construction at this time. He was able to pay the down payment from the money he earned from his business. So that was a great success for him, not taking a loan for the down payment and moving forward. And we are hoping in September of 2023, he will be moving out from that space into his own truck, his own space where he will be, you know, in charge of his own stuff. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Lloyd. Pass it back to you.
Sure, thank you. So that brings us up to our current moment. We have an entrepreneur who is getting ready to launch, and we're in the process of finding the next entrepreneur for the space. Joshua can give you an update on the current status of that search, because we are routing the search through MISO. Any entrepreneur in that space has to be willing to work with MISO for the coaching, the intensive coaching that you've heard Shika talk about and that we know Israel has been receiving. So Joshua, do you want to give us an update on the recruitment process as it stands right now?
Yeah, definitely. So we at MISO put up on our website a landing page that explained the application process, which includes financial projections, a business plan, a sample menu, and just some explanation of why they think they would be successful. And as Lloyd mentioned, they are required to work with a MISO advisor. So Shika has helped, I think, 2 or 3 people complete their applications, and we have 2 other advisors who have worked with people to complete applications. So I think we're at a total of 8 now, as of today, that are completed. All of them look really great. It's gonna be a hard decision. One of the things I wanted to mention is that this space is designed not to be an expansion for a current business, but as a first location. So that's, and all of the businesses that have completed applications meet that criteria. So really looking forward to narrowing down the field of candidates and starting interviews probably within 2 weeks. The application period ends the end of this week. So yeah, it's looking great so far.
Thank you for that update. This project is a little bit coming full circle. The LaunchPod business incubator was inspired by the Opportunity Cafe, and now we're using the same selection process that we used at the LaunchPod to fill the next entrepreneur here at the Opportunity Cafe. A marketing plan, a business plan, a menu, a business model summary, a startup cost analysis, a break-even cost analysis, all things we want any eligible entrepreneur to have ready to go before we think they can succeed at this space. These aren't high barriers to entry. These are things that the MISO team can help any entrepreneur take care of. So as Joshua said, the selection window closes at the end of this month. And in early August, we'll narrow the 8 or more candidates down to a short list of 3 to 5. At that point, Library Director Halstead Bernard will join us for some interviews so we can narrow the selection process hopefully down to 2. And I think you're right, it will be difficult. It was difficult with the launch pod. The idea is that we have somebody on tap and ready to move into the space when Israel launches sometime in September. Shika will work with him on his exact launch date. We will have a send-off. We will celebrate his success. We'll close the cafe for a little bit to do some cleaning and some updates, and then we'll welcome the next entrepreneur into the space. So we would hope by late September, early October to have a new face at the cafe. I think that is a good summary for where we stand now, and I think we have time to answer a couple questions if council has anything on their minds.
I don't have any questions, but I will just tell you that I think this is one of the coolest programs that we have. And I talk about it when I go to conferences all of the time, and mayors across the country feel the same way. It feels like such a simple concept, but it makes such a difference in the lives of Israel and his dreams and being able to do those sorts of things. And so I just wanted to say thank you for your partnership and your work on this project. And I hope mayors across the country continue to steal this. So cities can also offer this across the country. Are there any? Yeah, Council President Hu?
Thank you for the update. Are we or anybody still going to continue working with Israel on his business development plan? And
So I'm working with him, and as he's in partnership with MISO, like he's our anchor client, and any anchor client goes hand in hand for 3 years
Okay.
with the business support. And moving forward, we do not leave them alone. You know,
Great.
they can always come back if they have any question.
Thank you. And if you need volunteer for food tasting for the next client, I volunteer.
Thank you.
Well done, well done. Councilor Shaw?
Great, thank you. What an uplifting report, and very excited for Israel. I'm going to miss the soups. Any chance the food cart will stay in Tigard? Maybe have to answer that, but I'm hoping.
Yeah, we're not sure where his cart will be located. Good to hear you enjoy the soups.
Councilor Singh, anything?
Yeah, thank you for your service, and just want to ask about the IDA program and how that's funded, and would like to figure out how Tigard can support that process too.
Great question, Joshua. Are you the right one to handle that?
I think so. I believe that we get funding through Key Bank. Yes. So Key Bank funds our IDA program. It is open to any of our long-term clients, which to get into our long-term program, you have to meet with an advisor at least 4 times, and we have to do an assessment with a manager. So I just did an assessment today with one of Shika's clients, for example. And once they're accepted as an anchor, they pay a $250 one-time fee to become that long-term client. That opens them up to unlimited access to all of our workshops, 3 years of coaching, a lot of different networking and retail opportunities. And then it also grants them access to apply to our IDA program. The only qualification at that point, once they're a long-term client, is their income. And if they've had a business IDA before, they would be disqualified. Those are the only 2 major things. There are some documents they have to submit, but those will never disqualify them. It's just a process.
IDAs are typically income qualified, and there's a limit to the 5-to-1 match. Yours is?
It's 10,800 is the total. So they put in 1,800, and then the total ends up being 10,800.
And there are other partners of ours that do IDA programs, so it's something I too have been looking into. Often there's a longer waiting list for IDA accounts than is available due to that match component.
Thank you so much for being here. Our next item on the agenda is to accept an award from Metro for River Terrace 2.0 and direct the city manager to negotiate and sign an intergovernmental agreement. And we have Senior Planner Warren here to give the staff report. Welcome.
I don't see myself up here. Good evening, Mayor Lube and council members. I'm Skylar Warren, Senior Planner in the Department of Community Development. I'm here tonight to bring some good news to you regarding the next steps in planning for River Terrace 2.0. Last Thursday at their regular meeting, the Metro Council unanimously adopted a resolution providing the city with $700,000 in funding from the 2040 Planning and Development Grant Program to begin community planning. I want to give a thank you to Council President Hu for attending the meeting as well and sharing the council's gratitude with the Metro Council. My presentation tonight is just a refresher on the River Terrace 2.0 concept plan and where we're headed. And there is an ask of council at the end to adopt a resolution to accept Metro's award and authorize the city manager to negotiate and sign an intergovernmental agreement to do so. Next slide. So, next slide, please. Well, I'm going to start off talking about the first.
It's just taking a while to load.
Okay. Oh, there we go. I want to start off by talking about the first River Terrace. Here it is in 2014, before we adopted our community plan and began taking development applications. Next slide. Next slide will show you. Here it is in 2022. You'll be able to see both completed development and work in progress. And here's a quick summary of where we are there. We have 2,587 estimated River Terrace dwelling units. That's roughly 6,500 new residents. As of today, that means 14 developments. 60 acres of land remain without a development approval. That's less than 15% of the original acreage. And that pace of development was, I think it's fair to say, unexpected, and a good indicator that as we move forward, we're likely to see a similar pace. So under council's direction, in 2019, we began the process to look at the next urban reserves to potentially be developed in this area. That area, which was dubbed River Terrace 2.0, is shown here in yellow. It's bordered on the south by Southwest Beef Bend and Kingston Terrace area of King City, Southwest Roy Rogers on the west, and then on the east for the upper portion and Shoals Ferry on the north. Next slide. So, of course, when we started this work in 2020, we did so with the goal of helping to address the city's and the region's ongoing critical shortage of housing. Preparing these lands for development of housing is our charge, but we recognized then, as we do now, that it is important to do so in a careful and responsible manner, balancing the need for housing with other goals. And so at the outset, we decided that we needed a plan that incorporated two other priority focus areas, equity and climate change. We recognize that these two issues are inextricably linked, as the consequences of climate change are disproportionately borne by disadvantaged communities. And so our work is to increase equity within the community while decreasing our carbon impact and ensuring that this neighborhood is resilient and sustainable. Next slide. Based on this project focus, we worked with our stakeholders to set out a vision for the River Terrace 2.0 community. With regard to housing, the vision is for a neighborhood that is fully economically integrated with a block-by-block mix of housing types and no exclusionary zoning. There is a strong focus on middle housing and small units with a goal of not just allowing or encouraging these, but making them a requirement. The vision also includes a commercial component with walkable neighborhood-scale Main Street commercial areas and one flex zone that can accommodate larger flex office, mixed use, and perhaps even maker-scale industrial uses. To connect people, the vision includes a truly multimodal transportation network, prioritizing non-motorized travel within the neighborhood to reduce vehicle miles traveled and greenhouse gas emissions. Each of these three elements support the vision for transit-supportive levels of development, with the destinations and ridership built into the neighborhood that make fixed-route service sustainable. Tigard has long had a goal of keeping people within close walking distance of parks, and that vision will continue in River Terrace 2.0. And of course, we want to preserve the ecological function of the area, protecting and enhancing natural resources and retaining wildlife corridors, an especially important part of the vision given the proximity to the Tualatin National Wildlife Refuge. Next slide. So I want to highlight that quickly that this vision was the result of a comprehensive community engagement strategy. I'm particularly proud of the work our team did to quickly pivot our community engagement plan to a COVID footing, as we were able to effectively engage with the community throughout the project in multiple languages and on their own terms. And worth noting that we did kick this project off in March 2020, just as the pandemic got started. Next slide. So the outcome of all this work was a concept plan that won the endorsement of not only our council and our peers in the region, but also those who are often skeptical of edge development, most prominently 1,000 Friends of Oregon, who testified in favor of our plan to add these areas to the urban growth boundary. Next slide. We won these allies by setting forth a vision that replaced the conventional exclusionary zoning approach to development with a plan for an inclusive, economically integrated neighborhood for everyone. Next slide. In addition, we stepped beyond zoning and development code to explore new ways to support and incentivize smaller housing units, with recommendations for developing new policies to support these priorities. Next slide. So, quick recap of the timing. Like I said, we kicked off in March 2020, right as the pandemic started. And it was a whirlwind planning effort. We completed the plan in June of 2021, just over a year later. A few months later, we submitted to Metro our application for inclusion of these areas into the urban growth boundary. And in February 2023, after an extensive public engagement process, Metro approved the inclusion of these lands through a land swap, the first one that had been done in the region. Next slide. For the community plan, we do expect to take more time as we're not under the same statutory deadlines. So it's looking like we may be able to kick off this work sometime in October with an estimated time of completion of about 24 months. This means that if we run the annexation process concurrently with this planning project, we will be prepared to take in the first land use applications sometime in early 2026, meeting our commitments to bring needed housing to the region quickly. Next slide. So I'll wrap up here with a rough overview of the project budget. We anticipate that this work will take nearly $1 million to complete, and that's in consultant fees. Metro's award of $700,000 gets us pretty far down the road there, but we're also looking for other sources of funds and anticipate submitting a grant request to DLCD within the week. And of course, the council did approve on the consent agenda that application to DLCD. That will hopefully cover a significant portion of the gap, and we are exploring other federal funding opportunities to narrow the gap further. Next slide. So thank you, and with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Councilor Singh.
Thank you, Senior Planner Warren, for all your work that you've done on this planning process. I just wanted to bring up the issue of equity in the process, and specifically the site along Schultz Ferry. I think it's on the northern portion along Mountainside High School. There have been communities existing there already, and just wondering if you've been in communication with those existing communities there, and how we're addressing sort of displacement in this process.
Yes, so we have reached out to those communities to date. I haven't heard back. Always welcome. My office hours are pretty open. You know, we will actively, once we get going with the community engagement process in the next phase, There hasn't been a lot to talk about until now. We'll actively seek out the community and hope to engage them in the project. And of course, I've had ongoing conversations with property owners in the area over the past several months who, as you can imagine, are pretty interested in what the next steps are and how long those steps might take. But you know, I welcome the council to pass on my information to anyone at any time. I have an open door policy in talking with the community about this plan. It doesn't have to be during one of our meetings. Happy to take calls or emails at any time.
Council President Hu?
Oh, thank you, Skylar, again for your work on this. At the Metro hearing, one of the Metro councilor sort of wished us good luck on having, you know, this place well served by public transit. So I guess he's acknowledging the challenge, potential challenge involved. So without getting into the weeds, maybe at high level, how should we approach this public transit issue? Who should we contact, or who should we work with? How should we, you know, attract more public transit to River Terrace 2.0?
Thank you, Councilor. That's a great question. I think we're on our way there. We are engaging with TriMet staff, both through our technical advisory committee and just in conversations. Ultimately, you know, I know there's been a lot of desire, not just in Washington County, but really around the region, to see transit serve areas of edge communities. And I think it's a bit of a two-way street. There's a role to be played by both the transit service provider, but also by the community itself. And I think we're headed there because we have what I think will be what I would call a transit supportive development that we're planning for. The way I sort of describe that is that transit-oriented development, you know, that's something that crops up later when you've already got transit in place and it's a response to transit being there. Transit supportive development kind of takes the other tack and says, let's build development that will attract transit and make it sustainable over the long term. I think we've got the right combination of density, destinations, and a transportation network that's going to make transit sustainable in this area.
Yeah, thank you. And just very shortly, I read that recently the city of Wilsonville, their own city bus, whatever, is coming to Tiger. So that's quite intriguing to me. So if TriMet is not, you know, listening to us, I would be very interested in talking with you about the Wilsonville model at some point. So thank you.
Certainly.
I just also want to add, anytime we talk about transit on a county level or those sorts of things, we consistently point to, especially the west side of Tigard, as being underserved. And we talk a lot about, it's not just about getting the west side of Tigard into Portland, it's also those north-south connections of a lot of our individuals live in Tigard, but maybe they go to Nike or they go to Intel and they don't need to go towards Portland. And so know that that's something that I bring up constantly, and the mayor of Beaverton brings up constantly, that and many other mayors south of 99 to not forget about us and to advocate for us, if that helps at all. Are there any additional questions or comments or a motion on resolution number 23-24?
I move to approve resolution number 23-24.
I second the motion.
The motion, it's been moved and seconded. City Recorder Krager, please read the number and title of the resolution.
Resolution number 23-24, a resolution accepting a 2040 Planning and Development Grant Award from the Metro Regional Government and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and sign an intergovernmental agreement to that effect.
We will go to Youth Councilor Vogel first for her advisory vote.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. All of those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution 23-24 is adopted by unanimous vote of the council president. Thank you so much, Mr. Warren. Next item on the agenda is we have Power to the Pedal Affordable Housing E-Bike Sharing Briefing, and we have Assistant Transportation Planner Alec Perkins, sorry. And looks like Dave Roth. Thank you for bringing the bike up.
A name tag for Alec. I'll have to get one. Hello, Mayor and City Council. My name is Dave Roth, Principal Transportation Planner. And before we get started, I just want to introduce Alec. This is Alec's first time presenting in front of council. And Alec Perkins is a relatively new Assistant Transportation Planner. He's been putting in a lot of time and effort on this project, and I think we're both really excited to share an update with you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Alec Perkins. I'm an Assistant Transportation Planner and here to present an upcoming program called Power to the Pedal. And I'm joined by Principal Transportation Planner Dave Roth. Next slide, please. All right, so to introduce this program, let's begin with some background. In December 2022, the City of Tigard was awarded a $105,800 grant from the Portland General Electric Drive Change Fund, which I'll talk more about here in a bit. We were awarded this money for the purpose of purchasing 6 electric bikes and operating a bike library pilot program for 1 year. The bike library program involves locating these e-bikes at 2 affordable housing developments in Tigard and letting residents use them for free. These housing developments are managed by Community Partners for Affordable Housing, CEPA, and are located in developing areas of Tigard. The pilot program will be operated by Westside Transportation Alliance, known as WTA, a transportation management organization out of Beaverton who has experience operating bike programs for large employers like Nike and Columbia. Next slide, please. The PGE Drive Change Fund is a competitive grant program initiated by the Oregon Clean Fuels Program through the State Department of Environmental Quality, and it provides grants to cities, schools, agencies, and nonprofits for the purpose of purchasing electric vehicles, including e-bikes and EV chargers. Next slide, please. Since the Drive Change Fund was created, the program has awarded millions of dollars to fund projects throughout Oregon, and in last year's funding cycle, the City of Tigard was one of 15 organizations that received an award, and we were the only organization to use that funding to purchase e-bikes. 2 organizations purchased e-tractors, just to give you a fun example. Next slide, please. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about the pilot program, which is called Power to the Pedal. WTA will operate this pilot program for 1 year, during which we will be collecting data on the use of the bikes and the ridership habits of the users, while also surveying the users on their experience in the program. We intend to learn things like where people take the bikes, how long they check out the bikes, and if there's any barriers or limitations that the users are experiencing. And this data that we collect over the next year could inform program expansion in the future. Next slide, please. This pilot program aligns directly with the city's strategic vision of being an equitable community that is walkable, healthy, and accessible for everyone. E-bikes often have a high cost barrier, and by providing e-bikes directly to residents of affordable housing communities, we are eliminating that barrier, increasing access, and in turn promoting physical activities in underrepresented communities. Next slide, please. Similarly, this pilot program also aligns with the city's transportation system plan by improving the quality of life for members of underserved communities that spend a greater proportion of their income on transportation, giving them free access to e-bikes, which can replace most local car trips and in turn reduce our carbon footprint. We are also making the most of our resources by working with PGE on securing this grant, and with our partners, CEPA and WTA, on ensuring that residents will have access to a free bike whenever they need one. Next slide, please. All right, now I want to give you some details about how the program will work. Users will register into the program through an online app where they can reserve and unlock the bikes, similar to how people use the Biketown bikes and Lime scooters in Portland. This app is synced with a smart lock on the e-bike that tracks the bike's location via GPS. And this allows us to not only monitor the bike's location, but to track trips and collect ridership data. We've partnered with WTA to operate this program for the next year, and with their help, we were also able to assist residents who wish to enroll in the program but don't have access to a smartphone. WTA will be responsible for day-to-day operations and will serve as the primary contact for residents enrolled in the program. Upon registration, users will sign a liability waiver, they are offered a helmet, and they will agree to a set of program rules that the community helped establish. This community agreement outlines the basic rules for the program, like treating the bikes with respect and leaving them charged for their neighbors. This community agreement was created through a series of tabling events where we asked residents of these communities how they intended to use the bikes and if they had any concerns that we can address involving the community in the creation of these rules. And involving the community in the creation of these rules gives the residents more of a shared sense of responsibility over the bikes. Next slide, please. Okay, for the locations, SEPA manages the two properties that we are going to be piloting the program in. They have been incredible, very supportive partners as we've navigated this process, so really want to thank them. The first location is in Greenberg Oaks, just north of downtown. Here we constructed a custom storage module that houses 3 bikes in their parking lot, and I'll talk more about this storage module in a bit. The second location is Red Rock Creek Commons, located in Tiger Triangle. Here we are utilizing a pre-existing bike parking room and simply parking the bikes inside their bike room. The city has established license agreements with SEPA, allowing city teammates to access both of these locations. Next slide, please. All right, the e-bikes that we are using for the program, as seen here, are high-quality turn bikes that are designed with a low step-through and make it easy for people of all heights and sizes to ride. These bikes will require less maintenance because they are equipped with an internal hub transmission. They include integrated lights on the front and back for safe nighttime riding, and they come equipped with cargo racks for carrying groceries or other small loads and are compatible with most child seats. They top out at about 20 miles per hour and have a range of about 34 to 67 miles, depending on how much assist the rider chooses to use. And they were purchased from a Portland retailer and include a warranty against manufacturer defects. And they've been added to the city's insurance policy. Next slide, please. So earlier I mentioned that at one of the locations we had to build a storage module. This storage module was designed and installed by a Portland-based custom fabrication shop, Figure Plant. It was designed to be secure from theft and protect the bikes from the weather, while also being accessible for the user, allowing them to lock and unlock the bike, while also ensuring that the bike is plugged in and left charging for the next user. The module is essentially one wide bike locker that can store 3 bikes and charge three e-bikes, and it has an attached awning and a staging area. And all of it was designed to fit within a standard single parking space. My favorite part of this storage module is the metal cutout artwork on the panels of the locker, the design of which was chosen by the children of the after-school center at Greenberg Oaks. We gave the children 3 options to choose from, e-bikes, dragonflies, or wetlands, which included birds and cattails, and the children chose e-bikes, which makes a lot of sense. This storage module is under warranty for 1 year and has also been added to the city's insurance policy. Next slide, please. The full grant amount of $105,800 was budgeted into the 2022-23 capital improvement plan, and any unspent funds from the 22-23 CIP will be moved to the 23-24 CIP during the first quarter supplemental budget process. The e-bikes and storage module are property of the City of Tigard, and as I mentioned before, they're both under warranty and have both been added to the city's insurance policy. The grant requires that the pilot program, run for 1 year, while the assets purchased from the grant are maintained for 10 years. Any costs related to the bikes or storage module that isn't covered by warranty or insurance, including ongoing maintenance, will be covered by the Community Development Department budget. Next slide, please. All right, we are planning a soft launch next week on August 3rd. On this date, we will open up the bikes, open up the program for residents to let them begin using and testing the e-bikes. We're going to take a few weeks to work out any potential kinks and address any issues before we host a program launch event, which you will all be invited. And I know that the slide says August, but we finally found a date that works with everyone, and it's in September. So be on the lookout for that invitation soon. At this event, we are going to formally announce that the pilot program has begun and have a ribbon cutting ceremony to celebrate the launch of the program. Then for the next year, we will be collecting data, surveying users on their experience, and ensuring that the e-bikes are charged and maintained, and we will report back to council once we have some data and survey results to share with you. Next slide, please. And that's it. Thank you all for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions? Yeah, Councilor Shaw?
Thank you. I'm so excited about this project, and I think it's great that helmets will be provided and the cargo racks. Question, the mobile app, will that be provided, or will applicants be provided with multiple languages, or do you know if that mobile app is?
All of the materials that we've presented to the residents have been bilingual in English and Spanish, and the app itself has those capabilities that I'm sure that we will be implementing as well within the app.
So there's multiple languages, or is it just, do you know if it's just those two? I'm just curious because I know some apps out there have a lot more languages that are available. Dave's pulling it out to look at it. And if you don't have the answer tonight, that's fine. I was just curious because I know there's several apps that are increasing languages.
My question is, I guess, more general. As you were coming up with the community agreement, can you talk to us about the level of excitement maybe that the residents had?
Yeah, we hosted 2 tabling events at each location, and we had a bunch of people come up that were just genuinely curious about, what we were offering. And yes, people seemed very excited, wondering what the catch was. Like, we were like trying to convince them, like, no, these are yours for free, and they're just very, very excited and can't wait to use them. So
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
Mr. Roth?
I'm still looking.
Oh, okay.
I actually haven't signed up for the program yet. I had to sign up to get into the app, but I believe that Linka is actually, they're a European-based company, right? So I imagine they offer different language support, but we can definitely get back to them on that.
No, I think this is an incredibly cool program, and I look forward to seeing the data that comes back, and hopefully we can expand this program in the future. Any addition? Yeah, Councilor Singh?
Yeah, this is really exciting. Thank you all for working on this. I think one of the questions I had was about the educational component. Like, will there be a video for community members to learn, like, how to use the e-bike, and if there's any other educational component to help with that?
yeah, we've currently set through our partners' website, we've got a very robust website with lots of how-to instructions and safety instructions, and then we've also are doing registration events this weekend where we are inviting our Safe Routes to School coordinator to come and do some trainings for residents.
Yeah, Youth Council Rogel.
Yeah, I really love this idea. Just a quick question, I just want a confirmation. These will be available 24 hours a day for residents, or are there limitations on riding at nighttime? I know you said that there was good lighting, good lighting features, but just want to confirm.
Yeah, I think that we haven't set an exact time limit yet. I think my reservation is I just don't want users to take the bikes back into their apartments, so that's why I am thinking about maybe implementing like an 11 o'clock, something like that, but it's still being worked on. Yeah.
Thank you.
No, okay, seeing no additional questions. I mean, I know Council President Hu loves his e-bike.
Yes, I do.
Thank you so much for being here and presenting tonight. And again, welcome.
Thanks.
The next item on our agenda is our fireworks discussion, and we have City Attorney Rahala and Police Commander McDonald to present.
Thank you, Council. Good evening. So this discussion was going to be a continuation, part 3 of our normal update on our fireworks discussion. And then July 4th, 2023 happened. And we have a lot of lessons learned from how our ordinance actually worked or didn't work. At the time it was implemented, we thought it was an objective, easy to use ordinance that would be triggered by serious fire danger, and it would accomplish everything that we needed it to do, and it did not. And so we're joined by Commander McDonald and Sergeant Dottie tonight to talk a little bit about the enforcement perspective, about what we learned in terms of how our ordinance worked or didn't work, in terms of what we saw in the community, and also what we learned from neighboring jurisdictions in terms of enforcement. So I'll turn it over to them for their experiences, and then we'll circle back about the staff recommendation about what to do with our ordinance.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Again, Jamie McDonald. I'm one of the commanders in the police department. And I'm going to let Sergeant Dowdy kind of start off with what the perspective was from the police department this year as we attempted to implement the provision in the code that talks about the red flag warning as issued by the National Weather Service. And it came early that morning, which caused, I think, the greatest confusion. And I'll let Sergeant Dowdy take it from here.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. So I'm Sergeant Dowdy. I'm the traffic / admin sergeant here at the PD. So I just kind of wanted to go over kind of the last couple of years for the 4th of July as far as just our calls for service just relating to just fireworks calls. So in 21, we had about 68 calls relating to fireworks. In 22, we had 36 calls, so it kind of went down a little bit. But then this year we had about 50 calls for service relating to fireworks, and that's just on the 4th of July, not counting a handful beforehand and a handful afterwards into the 5th. We had about 40 fireworks calls for service between the hours of 9 p.m. and 11. This is the time of the night where everybody's really starting to gather together, kind of drink a little bit more, party a little bit more, have a little bit more fights. Things like that. That morning of the 4th, I had the tasking of going around to the large tented vendors in the different grocery store parking lots, mainly to tell them about the red flag warning and to give them the notice that the city had so that they could not sell their fireworks anymore. That was a tough task to do, to be honest with you. A few of the vendors are youth groups, and that's how they make the majority of their money for all of their outreach for the following year. I think you heard earlier from one of the business owners. I think he runs the one there at the Tiger Grange, if I remember correctly. And then the one that's down in the Trader Joe's parking lot off of Durham there. As soon as I mentioned that there was a red flag warning, she was like, "Oh, yeah, I mean, do you want me to stop selling fireworks?" Her father, I believe he was a deputy sheriff in another state at one time, and so she knew all about what a red flag warning meant as far as selling fireworks. The frustrating part, though, was that right across Pacific Highway in King City, they don't have the same provisions, or that I'm aware of, and so they were allowed to continue to sell while all of ours were shut down. And so that was a little confusing, I think, for some of our vendors that I talked to. So, I had one vendor that started to cry on me, and so it was a tough message to deliver the morning of, which everybody said was their busiest sale day. So that was a little bit about, from my perspective, what I dealt with on that morning. So
I think also it's important to put into perspective a little bit about what some of the surrounding communities also had in place. And I think one of the most prominent is our neighbor to the north, Portland. who had an all-out prohibition on fireworks for everything, even if they're legal in the state of Oregon, right? And they experienced their highest call volume, number of calls on 911 in 2023, and their second highest since the 1st of January 2018. So, and the largest portion of that came from fireworks calls, and this from a large city that doesn't allow, they have a prohibition on the sale of fireworks. But I think even more important is that most of the calls that any community is getting, Tigard included, are from the illegal fireworks. We're not talking about the ones that are legal by Oregon law, right? The vast majority of ones that we get the calls on are the ones that fly up, that explode. We heard a community member mention tonight something about the M80 sound. So those are the explosive ones that have a big concussion. Those are the types of calls that we're getting in the days leading up to the 4th and in the days following. And we did continue to get some of those calls. So it is, Tigard is unique in the way that we have our code written for the red flag warning. And as the city attorney mentioned, we thought in 2021 this was a really solid plan to run with. It seemed very well thought out at the time, and I think now with this education and experience that we have from this year, that there may be some better steps forward rather than using the red flag prohibition. We're in a little bit of a unique spot in that we don't have our own fire department, where we would have a fire marshal and potentially a fire chief that could provide some more scientific support to a decision like that. However, I think there's opportunities for us in the future should we have another event similar to, say, 2021, where we experience that incredible heat dome like much of the country is experiencing right now, where temperatures were 115 degrees here in Tigard just a couple of weeks right before the 4th, which caused huge concern for all of us about extreme fire danger. And so I think that there's ways that we can better approach it rather than using something such as the red flag warning. The unique part of it this time is we kept looking at it, wondering whether or not this was going to be implemented, and we didn't anticipate it. In talking with our emergency management director, Mike Lewick, he didn't anticipate it either, and all the information he was getting, we didn't anticipate it. And then early in the morning on the 4th, actually it was late at night on the 3rd, is when I heard it, and I said, uh-oh. And then that was what triggered us to have this scrambled response, which is not what we would like to do. It's not in the best interest of the community because it catches them all off guard. In fact, on the 4th, I was working, it was in the afternoon, and I saw some kids in the skate park lighting off fireworks, the legal ones. And I stopped and I said, hey, what are you guys doing? And they said, well, we're lighting off fireworks. And we did it here because it's a concrete space. They were trying to be safe. They had no idea that there was a prohibition on fireworks that day. And they were all very apologetic, very appropriate. And so I chose not to take an enforcement action by issuing a citation. I chose to go the education route, because all of these youths were very appropriate with their response and were very apologetic and had no idea that was in place. So I think there are some opportunities for us to get better as a city in the way we would approach these to make sure that our community is better informed. And what that decision would be will be, I guess, up for discussion this evening.
So based on that, we did tee up 2 questions for council to consider tonight. The first one is, should we repeal the prohibition on all fireworks during red flag conditions? And the second one is, should we ban all fireworks sales in the city? So those were really the 2 issues that that were brought to point by this year's 4th of July. So on the red flag conditions, like we acknowledged, we thought it was objective, easy to implement. It ended up not being that at all. So we would propose to repeal that section of the ordinance. So what worked in 2021, as Commander McDonald mentioned, is everybody was expecting it. It was a gazillion degrees outside. It was super dry. It was windy. Everybody was concerned about the heat, and everybody around us was united. The vast majority of cities implemented an emergency ban, and council always has the ability to do that. And so we would propose to repeal the red flag condition statement in our code and just rely on council's ability to enact an emergency prohibition if that becomes necessary. In 2021, it was well publicized, it was expected by the community, and all of those things did lead to better success than we had this year. So that would be our first recommendation. Should I pause there for discussion, or you want to talk about sales also?
Let's just do it all.
Okay. So the prohibition on all fireworks sales. So we don't have a recommendation on that. We're open to council's consideration. As Commander McDonald mentioned, the city of Portland has one. It made zero difference, but we do feel as staff that the uncertainty was really problematic this year. And when I was talking with Chief McAlpine on the 4th of July holiday, she said it was like PD was the Grinch stealing Christmas. And that's an unacceptable position for our community members and for our police officers to enforce. And so for consistency and setting expectations, we would propose either all or nothing. Either council ban them outright entirely, regardless of the time of year weather conditions, or allow them just the legal ones and keep our already existing prohibition on illegal fireworks. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions and open the discussion.
This is going to prove to be an explosive discussion, but it was hanging there, you know? Well, I'll go ahead and get started in general. And first, I want to apologize that you had to have those conversations. You know, I think that we were trying to do something good and it just ended up being worst case scenario. And so I personally want to apologize that you're the one that got the brunt of it, because it's never fun to be that person. So thank you for what you did. So I do believe we should repeal it, because I don't want a repeat of that. I don't want it for our officers. I don't want it for our community members. While the intent was good, it doesn't make sense in actual practice. Obviously, it can happen again quickly. In regards to all or nothing, I think I appreciate and sort of agree with the sentiment, you know, one way or the other. I don't disagree that illegal fireworks are the problem and are causing a majority of the noise issues for pets and kids and wildlife and our community members with PTSD. And so I think having plenty of planning ahead of time, I would love for us to come up with a more robust plan of hitting frequent offenders beforehand. My question is, did we give any fines this year?
We did not, but it has been a practice of ours for several years now to reach out to places that we've historically had issues with, places that neighbors have called leading up to the 4th, and we've gone out and made face-to-face, and we've done mailers as well in the past. But typically we find the face-to-face interactions much more effective, and that does head off some of the, I guess, repeat offenders, so to speak. So the biggest challenge that we have is that when we get the call, they come in, the calls spike so quickly. When we get the call, we have such a limited ability to respond. And one of the other complications is we're supporting the fireworks event at Cook Park and the high school during the same time period, and that's resource intensive as well. So it's a all hands on deck day for us in the police department. It's our highest call volume day of the year, almost without fail. And so we do attempt to have those proactive efforts, and then we do end up having officers that can respond specifically to the fireworks calls. That's part of our 4th of July plan each year. How effective that is really dependent upon the year and whether or not we can get there and be able to make the identification of the right address the right individuals that are launching off the illegal fireworks, and then be able to take that enforcement action. So it is a challenging effort to do, being as busy as it is and as resource intensive as we are on that day. So it's very hard. So we did not issue any citations this year.
City Manager, have we ever thought about, for the event that we have, hiring out private security so our officers can focus solely on responding to police calls that are coming in, knowing that it's the most intensive day of the year?
I have not been engaged in those conversations. I think it's something that, excuse me, Chief and Commanders and I could talk about and see if they believe the safety and security that we need would free up some capacity. So.
No. Okay. And so just in regards to, I remember the heat dome and everybody banding together and those sorts of things. And I have difficulties. I mean, the world just experienced the hottest week on record ever for us. This is not something that I feel like is going to be an if, it's going to be recurring, and it's going to be every year, and it's going to be a when. And we're going to get in these situations where even if it's leading up to it or maybe the week of, like, we just continue to have these conversations of, hey, I guess we're not going to have fireworks again this year because of whatever is going on, whether it be red flag or a heat dome or just extreme dryness. You know, climate change is here and it's real. And I don't want to continue stringing our community groups along and saying you can do this fundraising by firework, and then basically feel like every year it's just a matter of when we're going to shut them down, if it's going to be in the weeks leading up to it, if it's going to be horrifically the day of. Like, I don't feel that that's fair to our community. And so my preference would be to ban everything rather than nothing, but a very robust support for our officers to be able to do enforcement, and not necessarily just stand there and do traffic for our event. That doesn't feel like the best use of your time. So those would be my initial thoughts, and I will open it up to, Councilor Shaw.
Great, thank you. Definitely a robust topic. You'd mentioned, I think that Tigard was the only one that was following TVFNR red flag warnings, but I thought Lake Oswego was as well. Is that not accurate?
So Lake Oswego has their language is rather unique, and it blends many different. In fact, I have it here. I'll spare you the legal language, but it blends a variety of different things. So not just the National Weather Service, but it also brings in the like the fire level or fire rating from the Oregon Department of Forestry for this region. And it's basically scientifically based, with their fire marshal and their fire chief having the ability to make that decision. That's where Tigard is unique, in that we're in a fire district and we don't have our own fire department. So I had a good discussion with one of the police captains at Lake Oswego about how that works, and it really would be the decision of the fire marshal and the fire chief, one or the other, about whether or not they would move forward with a ban. And they didn't this year have a ban. And we were under the impression that it was very similar to what we had, that it would be if there was a red flag warning, but that's a portion of the decision making, and they didn't enact that, and it has to do with a whole variety of different input into that decision.
Great, thank you, Commander McDonald. To the questions, I too would agree. I think we had the best intention with the way that the statute was written, but the good news is we didn't have there wasn't any consequence with regards to fire, but we know it didn't work. So I too would agree with the mayor in repealing. Question with regards to question 2, should Tigard ban? From a liability perspective, City Attorney Rajala, if we are selling legal, and let's say there is a fire that, because we have a heat dome or something else, is that something the city could potentially be liable for?
So that would be a big stretch, because it's not the city selling. So it would have to show that the city's actions were negligent in allowing somebody to sell, and that's a pretty big stretch. So I would say that's not one of our primary concerns for this.
Great, thank you. I think I like a nuance of if there could be sparklers or snappers, maybe party poppers, a slight variation, because I think those aren't the loud booms. They're small. They typically aren't going to start fires. But I think too, the overall sending a signal to those youth groups that perhaps there are other opportunities that there might be of selling items that aren't going to potentially cause fire might make sense. But I'm in alignment with the mayor, but maybe a little nuance in that we could allow some of the smaller items or fireworks.
Councillor Singh? Council President Hu?
Thank you, Mayor. So do we know all those tents and are selling legal firework? Do we know that for sure? Okay.
Yeah, every indication we have is that they are only selling legal fireworks. And it would be a pretty big deal for them to be selling illegal fireworks.
Right.
In my career here, I can't ever recall hearing of a tent here in Tigard selling anything that was other than legally available or legally able to be sold in Oregon.
Okay. And do we know for sure the fire risk of legal firework? As you mentioned, there are some responsible other license or young adults lighting those legal fireworks on concrete floor. So I don't see the chances of, like starting a fire. So I guess that's something, since we don't have a fire department, maybe that's a data that we would want to collect from the TVFNR. Just realistically, how often are forest fire or whatever house fire started with those legal firework? I will actually be very interested in that kind of data.
Yeah, I'd have to look and see if that's something that they're able to actually discern in their record keeping, whether or not they know whether or not fires were started with legal or illegal fireworks. I can tell you that I saw in the local media that in the city of Portland Fire Bureau responded to over 50 fire calls on the 4th of July, and they have a complete prohibition on fireworks in their city. And the vast majority of those, they said, were credited to fireworks starting fires. They didn't mention whether or not they were broken
legal
down.
and not, okay.
So although in Portland everything's illegal, right?
Right.
Because they have a complete prohibition. I can ask that and we can follow up on that.
Right. And so I'm leaning for the first question. I'm leaning that we should not base any prohibition based on red flag conditions, and I support city attorney's suggestion. Maybe we have a mechanism declaring emergency prohibition. But I would also prefer that declaration can be declared by the city manager, because I don't know, like on 4th of July, could the council assemble and form a quorum to have an emergency declaration? So maybe at the same time, we can also have city manager be able to declare the emergency prohibition. For number 2, I'm very conflicted. I do feel like, it's like taking present away from kids during Christmas. And again, I don't know what the community, I would feel better if we get more input from the community and from the TVFNR to decide if we want to ban all the legal firework as well. And in addition, you mentioned that the city of Portland bans everything, and that didn't seem to help. So, I would hate to be the one who take away present from kids and and ended up not making a difference anyway. So I don't know where I'm leaning on number 2 yet. So, but number 1, I think red flag conditions should not be part of the equation, and it's not fair to the vendor too. So, yeah, so that's why I'm leaning.
Youth Councilor Vogel?
So I think for question 1, I agree with what has been said. I think that would be a better idea. For question 2, I'm also conflicted, and I agree with what Council President Hu had to say about it. I think that I'm leaning towards the ban just because for the greater good of the community, although I would like to see more community input, I think that would make the holiday more enjoyable for others. And I think that as someone who has pets and also does not like noise, I think that I can see where people are coming from and how that could, even though it's not the preferred option, I think that could serve the community better. So.
Okay, so I'm hearing generally a support for, outright support for repealing the ordinance. It feels like generally there's more support for a full ban than not, but asking for more robust discussion and engagement with the community. Do you feel like you have what you need for next steps?
So just to clarify on the full ban, so the question that we posed was just sales. So this is just related, is that the council's understanding too? Are we talking about just banning sales, or are we talking about all use as well?
Mine would be sale and use, because I sort of feel like if we just ban sales, then we're just sending all of our money over and out to other communities. And at that point, why are we banning the sales? So in the spirit of all or nothing, for me, it's all. Councilor Shaw?
Yeah, I still would like to see a nuance. So if there's consumer fireworks such as the sparklers or the snaps or the party poppers, those could be allowed. So I wouldn't say an all right, and maybe TVFNR has like a list of good fireworks and a list of those that are legal but bad. That would be helpful to me to get to both Council President Hu and also Councilor Vogel, Youth Councilor Vogel's comments about taking the Christmas toy away. So I wouldn't say for me it's an all right ban, but then also to Councilor Singh's point, I'd like to make sure that those that are sold also don't have a large impact on our climate with regards to the smoke. Because I know this particular year's was prevalent and it was not, there was a lot of smoke. And you know, I feel for the police, there's no way you could get to all those communities, all those calls in one night. And I know our community in particular was impacted. So.
Can I ask the officers about the practicality of knowing, to Councilor Shaw's point, what would be illegal if it's sparklers or poppers, just the actual enforcement of that?
Yeah, I was actually going to speak to that a little bit. The State Fire Marshal's Office does an excellent job of putting out we actually have like a one sheet that says this is legal, this is okay, and it's the fountains, the sparklers, the poppers like you mentioned. Nothing that flies or explodes is legal in Oregon. So I think for the enforcement part of it, it has the potential to be confusing for the officers, but I think more importantly, it has even greater potential to be more confusing for our community. Because, like Sergeant Dowdy said, they could have bought their fireworks in King City, who has a totally different ordinance or lack thereof, and drive back across into Tigard and be lighting off their fireworks and be doing something that's a violation of our ordinance completely unknowingly, having thought that they bought something that was legal for them to use, but it's not in Tigard because we have some nuances in there. I think it would pose some significant challenges for us in the enforcement end of it. I'm not saying it couldn't be done, but I think that the recommendation that I would make in terms of reducing the confusion for the community would be either allowing anything that's legal in the state of Oregon or just an all-out prohibition similar to the city of Portland.
Just one quick follow-up on that. So with the sparklers, party poppers, do you think you'd get phone calls from folks? Because to me, it sounds, they're not.
Yeah, I doubt it. I doubt that we ever get calls on those. We might get them on some of the like the whistling ones, which, to be perfectly honest, they hurt my ears, so I'm not a fan of them myself. But we may get some calls on those. But I really do feel like, you know, if we were actually to go back and call the people that call us on, you know, around the 4th of July, the vast majority of them are going to be, if not all of them, are going to be complaining about what's actually illegal fireworks. I feel highly confident saying that.
Yes.
So if I can clarify, Councilor Shaw, to your point, so the Oregon statute does define consumer fireworks, and so it under Oregon law, a flitter sparkler, a ground spinner, a cylindrical fountain, a cone fountain, illuminating torch or wheel, these are all part of already legal fireworks, so they would be included already.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for the clarification and additional discussion. Do you feel like you have what you need to move forward?
Yes, this was illuminating.
It's a hot topic.
I love it. Anybody else? Anyone else feeling clever? Come on. All right. Thank you so much for being here and the discussion and information. We have no non-agenda items this evening, and we have no executive session scheduled. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
The motion has been moved and seconded. I don't think there will be any discussion. So all of those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. The motion is adopted by unanimous vote of the council president, and we are adjourned for the evening. Thank you.